stuff like, well, I got some other ties that I know of on the Titans coaching staff, so I'll talk to you about those here in just a minute here, Joe, and I'll give you a nice introduction and all that. Yeah. Well, one guy I've really been impressed with in the state media has been Joe Rexrode. He is a columnist for the Tennessean. This is not his first appearance on Tri-City Sports Now. But he is, we talked to him during the Stanley Cup, for instance, and all this. Now, again, the East Tennessee fan base maybe looking upon Nashville a little bit more, what with the announcements of, well, certainly an MLS team coming to Nashville, but also the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs for the first time since 2008. So, Joe, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. And I guess just to start off with, the Titans are playing, I believe I said at Jacksonville. No, they are playing at Kansas City this week to kick off the playoffs. And I got to think, first of all, this basically secures the job of Mike Marky and his coaching staff, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, this is there's a lot of talk, building as the Titans lost 3 straight, Marky, about this coaching staff maybe being in trouble, which may seem weird because it's now 18 and 14 the past years. It was 5 and 27 the previous 2. But when you're an interim coach and you're already an unpopular hire with the fans, and you have a pretty bad career record as Marky does, there was always going to be a quick trigger, at least in terms of public perception. So that was beating Jacksonville was a huge win for the coaching staff. I don't know if he actually would have been fired. I suspect that Mike Marky is going to have to still make changes, barring a magical run from here to the offensive staff. It's been a tremendously disappointing season for that offense. I mean, I thought it was going to carry the team. I thought it had a chance to be one of the best offenses in the NFL based on what we saw last year, and then the addition of weapons on the outside. It stood to reason that it could be a tremendous offense, and it hasn't been at all. So it's a pretty mediocre team. Played the easiest schedule in the NFL in the final analysis. Got to miss Andrew Luck twice and miss Deshaun Watson once, and won those 3 games against backup quarterbacks. So a lot of luck has gone into this, but we'll have to give the Titans credit especially for finishing the deal with all that negativity swirling around them on Sunday.
And also the Jaguars playing a lot of their starters, which I was really surprised about since they had their playoff seeding all locked up and such, but they had to play against the first string and not a second string team like the Rams put out for whatever reason against the 49ers, or to a certain extent what the Steelers put out against the Cleveland Browns. We're talking to Joe Rexrode, who's a columnist for the Tennessean. Now, you made some talk about the Titans struggling offensively. They did make a switch going from running back from Murray to Henry against the Jaguars, and it came about. Henry has a long touchdown reception of 66 yards for the only offensive touchdown in the entire game. Is the story that he's going to continue to start against Kansas City, or is it going to go back to Murray?
Well, yeah, Murray couldn't play, so he has some sort of a knee injury. There's been varying reports on the severity, but it's not like it was season-ending, but he couldn't play last week, and he's not practicing right now. I'll be really surprised if Murray's able to go. I mean, watching him walk around the sideline, he didn't look like a guy who was close to playing football anytime soon. So I think it'll have to be Derrick Henry again, and if that's the case, I mean, Derrick Henry, I think you watched that game, you saw kind of the ups and downs of Derrick Henry, the feast and famine. If you get him going, he's incredible. I mean, he's probably the most imposing, we're talking 6'3", 247, runs a legit 4.5. I mean, you get him going and he's unbelievable, but you saw his flaws too. He's still not a polished running back. It takes him too much to get going downhill a lot of times, and he tries to bounce things outside. He had that, he started out 3 carries for minus 15 yards. He started out losing that huge loss near the goal line, like stuff that you sometimes you just have to put your head down and get a yard.
We're talking to Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean. Marcus Mariota, what is his development right now? I mean, I'm a big fan. I still like the drop back passer. Call me Norm Van Brocklin, but I just like it when the play starts 10 yards down the line of scrimmage instead of 7 yards behind it. Mariota, though, I was impressed by him putting the ball under his wing at certain times against the Jaguars and picking up needed yards and willing to take the lick, doing what he needed to do for his team at that point. Still, though, he hasn't emerged as an elite quarterback like a lot of people predicted for him when he was drafted out of Oregon. Do you think that Marcus Mariota's future is bright, that he will become a top 5 QB in the NFL?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. I don't know. I thought he was definitely on that course last year. You're talking 3,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 picks, with a very pedestrian receiving core. He has a great tight end, Delaney Walker. And Rashard Nance is a good player, but he doesn't have an elite receiver. You thought, Corey Davis, number 5 pick. They also got Taywan Taylor out of Western Kentucky that maybe with that extra speed and explosiveness, he'd take a step forward. But it's been statistically an absolute regression. It's been disappointing. I don't think he's played as bad as the numbers. I don't think his play reflects like a huge step backward, but he had a run there where he was, forcing things and throwing some bad picks. I mean, he threw 4 at Pittsburgh. He had a couple bad ones and a really bad loss at Arizona that kind of put him in a pickle. Like you said, he'll make those plays, and that run to basically clinch the game Sunday was, that's one of those like iconic plays. I mean, he stiff arms the guy, kind of bounces up, and maybe even toss a little bit, which is very rare for him. I think he's got all the talent in the world to be a quarterback like that. I mean, he's got the arm talent. He's an elite athlete. The intangibles, this is a guy who has never sipped alcohol. And he said that, and I believe him. I mean, that's who he is. He's a great teammate, but none of that guarantees you're going to be an elite quarterback. You got to make those quick decisions and read things and make pinpoint throws, and we're just going to have to see. But I would not rule anything out for him yet. I really wouldn't. I think he's still, this year, to me, is largely about the running game failing and not giving him the support that it did last year. The same personnel, but DeMarco Murray wasn't the same, the offensive line wasn't the same, same people, not the same performance, and I think that's a big part of the story of his step back this year.
Marcus Mariota, the teetotaler. Meet Donald Trump here. Hey, you did mention Delaney Walker. What was the Titans fans' response when he actually was defending the players for protests against the anthem and kind of speaking out? Well, he wasn't he was speaking out, you're either with us or you're against us type of comments concerning players kneeling for the anthem directed towards the fans. What was the Nashville reaction to those comments those many weeks ago?
Yeah, it was very angry at first. And again, I don't have it in front of me, but to paraphrase, the big thing he said that ticked people off was, well, if you don't want to come, don't come.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was part of a larger conversation just about all of it. But that particular segment of it ticked people off and said, okay, well, we won't come. And then later he said, he had death threats. And, there was a lot of anger around that time. And it's interesting because, Delaney Walker, as far as being a guy, good with the fans and the kids and being a community, he's right up there with Mariota and Jarrell Casey and Wesley Woodyard and some of these other guys on this team who are really, they go the extra step and they do a lot of things and they should be commended for that. But that was, he can certainly be defiant and, there's no question that, it was kind of, not just around him, the whole league for a few weeks, especially after that week when everyone, Trump said what he said, and then
Sure.
everyone, the league, it was very contentious. It kind of just faded, I guess. I think some fans have stayed away. I don't know how big that number is. I think some people, I've got plenty of emails from people who say, well, I've given up my seats or my PSAs, and I don't even check the scores on Sunday. So that's turned off some fans, but Now, it's like with Jacksonville, Mark, if you look at them, the week after that, they had the lowest attendance they've had under their current ownership of like 7 years. But they're sold out this week.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you win enough and you get people coming back, but you know, certainly that at that time was a little bit tense in that locker room for a few weeks.
Yeah, the Cleveland Indians struggled with attendance 2 years ago, but once they made the World Series, they didn't have any trouble selling those tickets, certainly. One thing, though, about Walker that I did notice, maybe you can help me out, I started noticing after that, you know, those comments that he made, a lot of pro-military PSAs that were going on that Walker was sort of authoring. He was the spokesman on NFL broadcasts. And I got to admit, I didn't notice them before the statements. Were they, now that might just be me, but were those statements, I mean, a product of the comment, or were they actually recorded before the comment?
Oh, no, I think, no, that was absolutely a response to this, and the NFL in general. If you go to an NFL stadium, since that weekend, I mean, there's more American flags waving than you can take a stick at. I mean, it's been an all-out assault on we are patriotic, you know, throughout the league. So, yeah, those PSAs, all that stuff, it was like a complete PR just machine churning from that time because, of course, these owners worried about losing a big chunk of their business. I mean, you know, they're freaking out. I mean, it's amazing. I think the NFL, what have they committed? 190 million? I don't remember the number. A good chunk of money to social issues. So basically, it's like, okay, so now the NFL wants to get into the social issues. Now that there's the kneeling anthem and all this stuff, and you know, it's. I mean, whatever you think about Colin Kaepernick and all that stuff, the fact that this results in that, I mean, at least there's like a tangible, you know, result here that might help some people. But yeah, the NFL has absolutely been in complete PR machine mode since that weekend, and those PSAs were part of it, no doubt about it.
Well, we're talking to Joe Rexrode. He's a columnist for the Tennessean, and you brought some of the cold weather from to Tennessee from Michigan, I know. But I wanted to ask you, Joe, just before we quit talking about the Titans and go on to the MLS franchise in Nashville, do you think the Titans have any chance of making a run in the AFC playoffs? I mean, going to Kansas City, this is a team that is, you know, struggled, lost 6 of their last 11. You know, is there a chance for the Titans to actually make some noise in the playoffs, or is this at best a appearance and hope for better things in the future?
Well, look, I wouldn't count anything out of them. We've seen wild cards, you know, make runs. I mean, to me, the ceiling is probably win this weekend, which is possible, and then be competitive at New England. You know, I mean, anything beyond that to me is like, holy cow, how did that happen?
Yeah.
This weekend's possible. You know, the Chiefs are hard to figure. I mean, I thought they were the best team in football the first month, and then they really regressed, and now they seem to be figuring some things out. But I mean, that would be a huge. I mean, to me, it's a success in the playoffs, even though some of the expectations were higher than that. But those expectations were overblown, and I was guilty of that too. I thought this roster was more talented than it is, frankly. But I think it's already a success. Win a playoff game, and that's a tremendous success. Anything beyond that is stunning, just because you know, we've seen the Titans go to Pittsburgh and get handled, and you know, we know what New England is. So I would think that would be the end of the road, but that would be a heck of a success, and maybe, you know, set this team up for something better next year. I mean, they're going to have to. They've got some roster holes to plug, and they've got a division that's going to have Andrew Luck back, Watson back, and Jacksonville is the most talented overall team, and you know, maybe they'll have a new quarterback too, depending on how Blake Bortles does in these playoffs. So I mean, it's not going to get easier from here, but I think a win is possible Saturday. I think that'd be pretty good.
I think the AFC South might be the best division in football next year. I mean, you know, and I know that the Texans and the Colts had down years this year, but a lot was because of the injuries, obviously. And, you know, the Colts prior to Luck's injury, were certainly quite the contenders, playing for a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. We're talking to Joe Rexrode. He's a columnist for the Tennessean and one of the best in the state, in my opinion. But I want to move on to what was really got a lot of ink. It was even front page on the sports sections around here. Nashville was getting a MLS franchise. The first thing that I know that this is big in Nashville, but I look at that USL team that you're getting this year to begin play and really start to bring something of a high level of professional soccer to the Music City. Tell me, this may seem, well, the first question I want to know is, what's the future of that USL team? Is it going to be relocated when the MLS team starts play?
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that, Mark. It's a good question. There have been arrangements where they're affiliated, and that's happened in some cities. So I really don't know. I mean, the USL team now sort of becomes like the test market. Even though there's definitely an MLS team coming, but it's kind of like, let's see what kind of support that can get. Of course, it's playing at the the home of the Nashville Sounds, a AAA baseball team, but the MLS team comes.
Yeah,
They do coexist in some cities.
I was curious they would do that because one of the things I was thinking of is sort of like let's just take the Atlanta Braves situation. Their AAA team is no longer in Richmond, it's in Gwinnett. The Cleveland Indians AAA team is in Columbus, Ohio. And I started wondering, well, you see, Joe, soccer has really taken off, I find, in the Tri-Cities when I go out and about and I see, I'm a sports talk shows. What sports do you like? I can't tell you how many people are leading off with soccer to me, which I'm somewhat surprised about, but that seems to be the feel around here. And I just wonder if the USL team couldn't be relocated to, let's say, a Summers-Taylor Stadium in Johnson City. I think that would be very popular, and for that matter, it would be easy for call-ups and regional branding for the new Nashville MLS franchise. But let's throw you the softball. How big was that announcement? It seemed like it was fireworks on the 4th of July, and the Predators are in the Stanley Cup all over again when that announcement was made. How big was it in Nashville?
Yeah, it was big, no doubt. A lot of people excited about this. I'm still interested to see what kind of support it gets. It's interesting. I suspect it will be a great environment. When they get the stadium going, it'll be a great place for families to go, and people will go. And they're, of course, part of the financing plan is 10 acres of development, so it'll be another area in the city with restaurants and all that. But I think it'll be supported. The thing with the MLS is we're still waiting for anybody who's a hardcore soccer fan. MLS is not their first choice. And they watch European soccer, which is how it is. And that's different in terms of our other sports in this country that are major league sports. They are essentially the best in the world. The NHL,
sure.
the NBA, the NFL. So it's still a league that needs to grow. And, will people want to read about this team? Will people tune in on television and watch this team? That's still where the MLS is, has a long way to go to make up ground on the other leagues. But there is excitement here, and I think it fits how the city is growing. It's growing fast, and it's young. And I will tell you, I'm a soccer parent. Never played it, never really followed it, but I'm blown away by the talent and the quantity and quality of soccer around here. People are really into it, so I think it will do well. I still, do wonder, will it wrap? If it's a good team on a playoff run, will it wrap up the city the way the Predators did? I still have my doubts about that.
All right, we're talking to Joe Rexrode, and he is a columnist for the Tennessean. We're not even going to get to the Predators in this interview, but I do want to ask a last question. I know that the talk for the new MLS franchise, the location, you mentioned it, but it's at a fairgrounds location. Now, you're going to be a lot more familiar with Nashville geography than I am. I can basically get to the Opryland Hotel and the Shoney's across the street, okay? I mean, that's sort of my extent of the knowledge of the place. But I understand the fairgrounds, it is a place that has one of the oldest racetracks, automobile racetracks in the country, dating back to 1904. There was some talk about refurbishing this, trying to make it a viable auto racing venue again. Another prominent NASCAR track in the state. Are these plans now abolished with the announcement of the MLS team, or is that there's some way they can coexist?
My understanding is that that's gone.
Okay.
I don't think that's a thing anymore. So, you are right. At one time, there was talk that, that they could have like a viable, big-time racing track, but I don't believe that that's any kind of discussion now. And so now it's going to be the stadium. And of course, there was an opportunity for Vanderbilt to get in on this with football, and I think Vanderbilt was wise in not doing that, even though it would be a much nicer stadium than they have. But it'll be, soccer, and again, basically the developers getting this land, and this is part of the deal to essentially keep most of the money here is going to be in debt service and not going to be, a hit to the taxpayer. It's going to be some sales tax hit, but that development was a key part of that. Some people didn't like that, and there, a couple people protested that. There's a lawsuit that is still out there on that, but it doesn't look like anything's going to stop this from happening. And so then you're going to have, again, you're going to have all these bars, restaurants, like some living quarters and things like that around this place now. So it'll be another place in the city. The racing stuff is over.
Well, on the bright side here, I guess that would mean that the Tri-Cities continues to be the capital of NASCAR racing in the state. For whatever that's worth, okay? So we'll give credit where credit is due. I'll also give credit where credit is due to Joe Rexrode. A lot of times, the Tri-Cities, Nashville might be the state capital, but what does that mean? A lot of times it seems like it is another planet out there in Nashville. But the goings-on of sports this past month in Nashville affecting maybe the Tri-Cities in a lot of different ways. When we come back, I am going to tell you, about some coaches. A coach lost his job, maybe because of the Me Too movement. I'll tell you more about that when we come back on Tri-City Sports Now. Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. And